Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Shane Beamer, the South Carolina Gamecocks really seem to be taking some big swings in the transfer portal over the last couple of days. Want to dive into a few new targets that have emerged for South Carolina. I also want to talk about a few linebacker names that South Carolina could be pursuing in the transfer portal as well. Look, you look at this roster and what it's going to be in 2025, there's not many holes. You feel kind of good about where South Carolina is heading into 2025. If there was that one position that, when I look at it, jumps out to me, it's probably that off ball linebacker spot. And it's not a knock on a guy like Fred Johnson, who I think is going to be a damn good football player for South Carolina over the next couple of years. But when you lose the experience and the production of guys like Debo Williams, Demetrius Knight, guys like Bam Martin Scott, you probably want to supplement what will be a young linebacker room with a few linebackers that have played a lot of football in their careers. So I want to talk about some linebackers as well, but I want to start with Aaron Noland. I think this is a fascinating development for the South Carolina program. Now, before we get into it, as always, just want to give a quick shout out to the South Carolina fans. It's no secret I've had a blast talking this program over the last couple of weeks, finishing out 2024, talking about the young talent that's going to be back in 2025, talking about the transfer portal additions that they've made. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the fellas has been amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm going to be breaking down the commitments as they come in. Without further ado, let's get into Aaron Noland. Now, what kind of excites me about Aaron Noland is I followed this kid out of high school down there in Langston Hughes. Really, really impressive quarterback prospect. And I don't think he's transferring out of Ohio State because he can't play. You just look at that Ohio State room and how many bodies are in there, how many good bodies are in there. Aaron Noland's probably looking for an opportunity where he can get more snaps and reps in practice and have a little bit more of a clear path to the football field. And what does it tell us about how these quarterbacks are looking at the South Carolina program? I think they're looking at a homegrown talent like Lenore Sellers, which is rare in this day of college football, right? A lot of these top quarterbacks that we're seeing are transfers. You're looking at Lenore Sellers, who came into the South Carolina program as a talented quarterback, but a raw quarterback, a quarterback that needed a lot of development. He got that development and has emerged as one of the better quarterbacks in the country heading into 2025. I think Aaron Noland's looking at that situation and saying, I got a lot of big time trades. Come to South Carolina with 4 years of eligibility remaining, back up Lenore Sellers for a year or two and potentially be that guy. That kind of shift where a guy like Aaron Noland, who is one of the more coveted quarterbacks out of high school in the 2024 class, is looking at South Carolina and saying, that could be a spot where I get the development I need. That's exciting. I don't think that's really happened over the last couple of years. And yeah, Spencer Rattler was good for South Carolina, but he was a transfer portal addition as well. When you're able to homegrown a talent like Lenore Sellers, it's going to attract young quarterbacks to your program. And I think that's what we're seeing with Aaron Noland. And at the end of the day, you talk about Lenore Sellers, Aaron Noland in the same quarterback room. It doesn't get more talented than that. Whether Lenore Sellers moves on to the NFL after 2025 or comes back in 2026, you kind of know you got a really good quarterback waiting in the wings. So not only getting your quarterback room better in 2025, but giving you that clear picture of what the quarterback runway is going to look like for the next couple of years as Shane Beamer continues to build this program up. That's a really exciting proposition too. I would love to see Lenore or Aaron Noland wind up in the South Carolina quarterback room heading into 2025. You get a little seasoning on this kid, a little bit more development, I think he'd be a big time football player for South Carolina. Now, another position that to me, you're seeing South Carolina try to capitalize on some momentum with is at the edge rusher spot. When you get a performance from Dylan Stewart as a true freshman, truly one of the more dominant edge rushers as a true freshman that I've seen in this conference in quite a long time. That's going to attract some really talented edge rushers as well. And then you see a guy like Kyle Kennard who transfers in from Georgia Tech. Kyle Kennard was, he was a solid player at Georgia Tech. He wasn't like a top 100 NFL draft pick and play himself into potentially being a first round NFL draft pick. that's going to attract some talent. And you can tell South Carolina's trying to capitalize on that a little bit. TJ Cersi. I mean, Sterling Lucas clearly doing something right, coaching up these edge rushers. And TJ Cersi, a guy coming out of Georgia in the 2023 class, committed to Florida. A lot of traits that you can like with TJ Cersi. Really good first step, really good length. Probably needs to up that play strength a little bit, but has played a lot of football in the SEC. Look, South Carolina, the recipe's there. Like, we want to be good against the run and we want to get after the passer. TJ Cersi certainly helps you do that in the 2025 season. And you're looking to replace a guy like Kyle Kennard and supplement another elite edge rusher with Dylan Stewart next year. TJ Cersi, to me, would be a really exciting addition. Again, Sterling Lucas, he knows how to develop these kids with some elite traits. Another name that I think would make a lot of sense, and that is one of the things that when we're talking about these targets for South Carolina, they all make sense to me. You know, you look at Rodney Nome Jr. from Western Kentucky, was a JUCO kid, went to Western Kentucky, 407 pass pro opportunities in Conference USA this year, 1 sack, 6 quarterback hurries. You're losing 3 really, really experienced guys on the inside. You're bringing someone like Nick Sharp to add some veteran experience. Rodney Nome would be another guy you're looking for. 2 years of eligibility, showed that he can play at a high level at the college football landscape at Western Kentucky, coming from the JUCO route. This one would make a lot of sense. And there's a lot of different ways this South Carolina offensive line can look in 2025. I think you got your quote unquote franchise left tackle in Josiah Thompson. I think Tree now can kick into guard, and that to me might be his ideal position. So you got Trevon Baugh and Tree potentially gunning for some spots on the inside, along with Marquis Anderson. You're bringing Nick Sharp. You're potentially bringing Rodney Nome. All of a sudden, you're looking at the offensive line and say, we have to replace a lot of veteran experience on the inside of the offensive line coming out of the 2024 year. All of a sudden you look at it and say, well, we're feeling pretty good about what the inside of the offensive line is going to look like heading into 2025. And it goes along with the same conversation of, hey, we got to build around Lenora Sellers. And it's not only the pass catchers, right? That's been the popular talking point that we've talked about the last couple of weeks is, hey, getting pass catchers in this room to go along with Michael Smith, Nick Harbor, and Mazeo Bennett. Give him a good offensive line. They give him a good run game, which is a nice segue to talk about Justice Haynes, who I think the good news for South Carolina is it sounds like it's a 2-horse race. You know, I'm a Michigan fan, and so it's between South Carolina and Michigan. Whoever gets him is getting a really good running back. And you look at Justice Haynes, again, one of those guys that he's not transferring from Alabama because he couldn't play there. He's transferring because he wants to be the guy in an offense that's going to run the football. South Carolina is going to run the football a lot. We saw the recipe last year. They play good defense, run the football, and it gets easy to run the football when you have someone like Lenora Sellers in the backfield. Lenora Sellers, Justice Haynes combination is going to be dangerous for South Carolina in 2025 if that does happen. That's an exciting one. The last one I want to talk about here, and it kind of gets into the off-ball linebacker discussion, Elijah Herring. Now, is Elijah Herring going to come in for South Carolina, be a first-team All-SEC guy? Probably not, although I probably said the same thing about Kyle Kennard, and that's kind of what he turned out to be. But he's a guy that has played a lot of football, 1,400 career snaps between his time at Tennessee and Memphis, has made a lot of tackles, has shown, I believe every single game for Tennessee in 2023, has shown that he has the ability to start and play good football in the SEC. This is kind of that name that I'm looking for. Does South Carolina need to break the bank to go get the best off-ball linebacker in the transfer portal? No, and quite frankly, there's just not a ton of talent at the linebacker spot. There's a lot of talent at the wide receiver spot. There's some talent at the running back spot. That off-ball linebacker spot so far, not a ton of names hitting. We'll see what names potentially hit when Georgia finishes up their college football playoff run. But right now, Elijah Herring, to me, represents an experienced off-ball linebacker that's played a lot of football in the SEC, that's a plug-and-play guy to go along with some talented youngsters like Fred Johnson. We'll see how it works out. It sounds like we'll have some commitments to break down over the next couple of days and weeks. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. The amount of support has been amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, Consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.